Nobody talks about what happens when you finally follow after God. You prayed, you started the channel, you posted the video, you even stepped out on faith, and then nothing happened. But then you start looking at your analytics. You start looking at the likes, the subscribers, the low views, and you start doubting if God even talked to you. That comparison slaps you in the face like no one else, because this was the first moment you let go and let God. But I'm gonna say this right now. If you're obeying God, the real test of obedience isn't starting. The real test is staying obedient when the results are invisible. And I can see it now because it's happened in my life over and over and over again. It comes on a Sunday where, I get a word from God, or I listen to a preacher and I'm just fired up. And, after praying, I feel like I hear from God, and I start doing my thing. And, I walk over to my computer and I'm like, all right, we're going to get this started. We're going to go gung-ho after the whole thing. You get that first day motivation. You imagine the impact. You imagine the success. You think about, oh my gosh, what would life look like? And then all these expectations start boiling up in your mind. And you're like, oh my gosh, God, I'm going after this. It's guaranteed to happen. Like, God, let's do it. But after posting that first week of videos, week 2 comes by, and you don't see any comments, you don't see any likes. You don't even see any of your friends reposting any of the stuff that you're doing. And a lot of people think that tension is God resisting. And I get it, it's hard to tell which one is which. Is God resisting you, or does the world just take time? But in this video, we're gonna talk about those moments where you're actually doing the right thing. And there's plenty characters of Bible, like Peter walking on water, Noah building the ark for almost 100 years, and Abraham leaving without a single ounce of evidence. The point that I had to struggle with for many years is that God doesn't promise immediate results. God promises provision, not instant visibility. You see this in Matthew 6. And there's plenty of times where I myself have gotten so locked in on the vision, then I get into the trap where I make the views the spiritual confirmation, and the external validation becomes my life source. If your obedience depends on an applause, you're gonna get really messed up when heaven gets quiet. Faith is continuing before the evidence catches up. I remember working with a client, and this person really wanted to get into speaking gigs. So they got their camera, they got the YouTube channel, they started posting for the first couple weeks, and then week 4 came around and they completely lost it. They felt like God wasn't even answering them. They felt like God actually turned their back on them. And the person would say, oh, I only got 13 views. Oh, I only got 30 views. Like, what's happening? What am I doing wrong? How do I get out of this cycle? Maybe the algorithm is working against me. Maybe, something is just working against me. And I had to put it into perspective. Like, okay, 13 views. If you had a room of 13 people, could your bedroom fit 13 people? That's 13 people with 13 different perspectives who agree and like the content that you have, so much so that they clicked on your content and listened to whatever capacity that they did, but they did it. And sometimes you can get really caught up in the numbers because we wonder, oh, if I don't get 1,000 views, well then I'm not doing great. But what Jesus so stressed in the Bible is that he left the 99 for the one. He went after that one viewer, that one like, that one subscriber, that one person that he can change, that he can mold. Sometimes you only need one person to change, one person to inspire, one person to give motivation to transform, to change, to renew their mind on the thinking that they had. Maybe they're depressed. Maybe they're on the fence of using their gifts for God or living for the streets. But in this video, I'm going to talk about why most people are inconsistent. A lot of people are inconsistent because they don't have a structure. A lot of people go after motivation instead of a system, instead of a method. And I have a free resource in the description called the multiplication method. If you want to really use your gifts for God and do it the right way, using the right content system and everything like that, click the link below and I'll send it to you. My son is 10 years old and he plays football, and he's one of those kids where he's super good scholastically. Like, he's amazing. He gets the honor roll every quarter, the whole shebang. But when it comes to social skills and doing sports and stuff like that, well, he thinks he's the best thing since sliced bread. And each and every day, I have to continually teach him that being good at a sport isn't only just showing up on practice. Outside of practice, you gotta learn, you gotta study film, you gotta have a system, you gotta make sure that your macros are great, that you're eating amazing, that you're working out, that you're conditioning yourself, you're taking care of yourself, you're hydrated. Like, there's so many different things that you have to take care of in order to make this system work. But what do? We do the bare minimum when it comes to our obedience. And even when we put in a little extra effort, you find it really hard to equate a full-time job with going after your gift. Because at the end of the day, this is your job. We've all worked positions where you had to track KPIs or made sure you had to stick to the standard operating procedures that were created by a manager. Living in your calling is not just something you do flippantly. It's not just only something you do when you feel like it. It's something that has to be done regardless of how you feel. I can tell you personally, I do not like creating content. The moment that red light turns on, I feel like all my brain cells take a trip to Cancun. I start speaking to the camera and I start tripping over my words. And something that should take me 30 minutes takes an hour. I know that about myself. But I also know that God has given me a gift to coach and motivate the people to start walking in their gifts so that the Lord can say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." So in order to trust the process, we have to understand what stewardship means. Stewardship is a funny one because it goes completely against what the world thinks. When you're a content creator or you're doing business, you treat it as something you own yourself. But in stewardship, you treat all your gifts and talents, not yours, but God's. So when you're stepping up to the plate, when you're creating content, when you're writing that book, when you're starting that community, when you're starting that shop, you're opening that business, you have to mentally train yourself to see it as you working for God instead of you doing it for yourself. Because half of you, like myself, didn't even value yourself to begin with. But when you have a relationship with God, the Holy Spirit charges you with a greater confidence. It says in Joshua 1:9, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be dismayed by the things that come your way, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." And when you're living a life of obedience, this is where it gets crazy. You have to stop obsessing over the numbers. You have to focus on the consistency, because consistency is key. Showing up every day, even when you don't have anything in the tank, you have to show up every day. Consistency means everything. You have to remember who you're called to. There's so many people out there who feel like there's no value that they have to give to the world. And it's my responsibility as Joshua Feelings to make sure these people know that no, you have a gift, you have a talent, there's a reason and a purpose that God put you on this earth. The things that you dream for, the house, the car, the this, that, and the other, the impact that you dreamed of is not because you watched a whole bunch of Disney movies. No, those dreams are in you because God gave you desires that need to be fulfilled. You must, and I repeat, you must detach your outcomes from obedience. And I might not get the praise for this video until decades from now, or even ever. But one thing that I know for a fact is that God has given me this charge. God has given me an option to say yes or no. One thing that I have to tell myself every day is that your primary focus is obedience. God will take care of the rest. Just focus on obedience. If you want to learn more about multiplying the gift that God has already given you, click the link in the description. There's a free resource that shows you how to get started and how to make sure that you're getting on the right foot. Some of you already know what God told you to build. The issue isn't clarity anymore. The issue is consistency. So do this for me. Keep posting, stop shrinking, and steward your gift seriously. Like and subscribe, and I think you're gonna like this video.